Hey, welcome back to the Cobra. Today we're working on the rear anti-roll bar. First thing we're going to do is get the car up in the air, but with the suspension loaded so that it's at right height. Obviously I can't do it on the ground because I won't fit under there and I don't have a full post lift. So I think what I'm going to try is put some jack stands under there, but not on the body, on the suspension, so that the suspension is still loaded in the correct right height, how it would be. Got a few prep items to do before we do that. The front coilover needs to go down. The car sits a little high up there. And the rear needs to be adjusted, although I need to swap the wheels out first because this whole entire wheel combo is too small. I have 15-inch rims, which it's a smaller rim but a bigger tire, so the overall wheel combo is bigger. And then I got to get that on the car and then adjust the right height accordingly to that. Then we can go ahead and, well, actually before we can even then, we have to move the exhaust. The exhaust hangers are welded up in the frame right about exactly where the anti-roll bar needs to go, so that's going to have to be adjusted. The 15-inch wheels, I think, are on the 92 Fox right now in storage, so I gotta go dig it out, steal the wheels off of it and put something else on it. Okay, before we get too far into this, let me show you the actual anti-roll bar I'm going to use and a little bit about why I picked it. I needed something that went under axle, of course, and I needed something really strong and solid. Found a few flimsy options out there, and some of them didn't even weld on. You clamp them onto the axle. That wasn't going to work for me. I found this from TRZ, actually out of Florida here. It's the main bar. It's pretty solid and heavy. These ends are welded on. Quite like that. What I thought was pretty slick was the ends that they give you. So you weld these onto the axle itself, and then it has a removable end so you can service it. This is obviously where the bar slides in, just like that. Onto here, they put some sort of a bronze or copper maybe bushing in here, and obviously you grease it, and that makes it a serviceable piece, which is great. So if this ever wears over time, you can simply unbolt these ends and swap them out. And of course it's got a Zerk fitting, so you can grease it at regular intervals. So this part's going to weld up to the axle, pointing straight down, so the anti-roll bar is going to sit underneath the axle. Then they give you these little plates. This is what you're going to weld up to the frame, and you can take these hind joints and you'll put them in there like that. So that's going to bolt up to the frame, and then of course this end here will swing out onto here. And they give you some basic hardware. Fairly simple but pretty effective. I think this is going to be a great option. So I'm excited to get this in. So yeah, let's get to it. So here we can take another look at why I can't use a traditional over axle anti-roll bar. You can see that massive 3-inch mandrel bent pipe going over the axle leaves no space. We can also take another look over here at my exhaust hanger setup. You can see this is the factory hanger location and setup, and the weight of the muffler is out this way as well as here, so it has a natural tendency to want to sway like that. And that's exactly what it was doing, mostly on the passenger side. It would sway inwards and kind of ruin this connection, and the whole pipes move. You know, space is very tight in here. Don't have room for things to be wiggling around. After I added one on the other side, so I have both, I mean, now look at that, you can bang it, it's solid, nothing moves, it doesn't even budge an inch. But that's my mount point. My anti-roll bar is going to come down here, it's going to go up here, and it's going to want to mount right here. Okay, I've been checking the measurements on this axle, left to right, forwards, back, and up and down. Obviously I want to get it centered and in the right place before welding in the anti-roll bar, because that's in there pretty solid and doesn't move. So what I found was, in terms of left to right, forwards and back, looks fine. Up and down, not so much. I'm getting different heights from the ground up to the axle and to the fender on opposite sides. I checked a little closer and I found the problem. It's as simple as the coilovers, luckily. They were just adjusted to different heights on both sides. I think I'm going to go grab the 15-inch rims and get the right height that I want. I don't think it's as big a deal because you can change heights and coilover height once the anti-roll bar is on there. Alrighty, T-top, where you at? Okay, I need these wheels. Cobra needs his wheels. Here they are. Alright, these are the 15s on the T-top. Fortunately, it's sitting in the storage shed, so I don't think I can use a floor jack under here. Probably go right through it. So I have a plan. Electric scissor jack. Got a little power source jumper pack. I have the coilovers adjusted and the wheels on now. So I have ride height about where I want it. It's not too tight, it's not too loose. This is a great spot to line things up for welding. The axle seems pretty centered. I have the anti-roll bar mocked up here. It's just sitting on jack stands, so I can get an idea of placement. And what I did was I moved it a little bit forward here. So if you look at the hangers off of the axle, they're not straight up and down. They're in at an angle just a little bit. But the idea here is it gives me some clearance here where I can put a jack stand. So if I ever jack the car up, I have a spot to get that without the anti-roll bar directly in line and in the way. And of course on the pumpkin itself, I have space to jack it up because I have this little bit of clearance here now where I can get a jack up. But the part that's really cool and interesting is right here on the little arms that go up and down on the anti-roll bar. It looks like, sitting off of here at 90 degrees to the frame, perpendicular, it looks like it actually clears the exhaust hanger. So I went ahead and cut a couple of squares of plate steel like this, and the idea is to create a base plate or a stronger bracket mounting surface where these guys are going to go to the frame. Instead of just trying to weld this directly to the frame, it's kind of a weak point. I think it's going to be better if I put them on some sort of structural material like this to give it, this is going to sit in here and attach up to the frame, and then I'll weld this whole unit up onto the frame. The other advantage is, as you can see, these are extremely tight together where this fits in here, and getting the welder in here is going to be kind of intricate and some more delicate welding, and I'm definitely not a professional welder by any means. So welding this on the workbench and getting this down all nice and then just welding the big frame piece, or the base I should say, to the frame, is just going to make it a lot simpler and easier under the car as well. Got my ends all cleaned up here, ready for some welding. As I'm mucking this up, I'm looking here and I'm realizing there's no way I can get my welding gun inside of there to do the inside, so I'm only going to be able to weld these on the outside. It does concern me just a little bit. I may even just weld up a scrap piece first to get this dialed in. Looks like a lot of heat came through the backside. You can see the metal almost flaking off there. You can see some heat came through the bottom. The weld side looks a little thick. Might have had the wire speed a little too high. But I'm more curious about the penetration. I think I'm going to cut this in two and have a look inside and see how deep the weld went. I know you can't see this very well at all, so I took an up-close picture that I'll show you. But essentially it looks like the heat traveled all the way through the back of this top piece. But some good penetration, almost right out the back actually. The base plate part though, it barely touched. And I'm wondering if it's because I had it sit down on this 1/4-inch plate of steel. This was probably acting as a giant heat sink and pulling all the heat away, and why it didn't go through the bottom. Either way, phase 2 of testing that weld. Well, I'm definitely amazed this is still together. But if you look carefully, there is a hairline crack starting in on that side over there. And the far side where I started the weld started tearing up. And that's kind of confirmed by what we saw on the etch, that it didn't penetrate that base plate very good. It's subpar. We're gonna improve this. I made a few more coupons and I adjusted some wire speed and currents. Pretty much figured out my settings for how to get some penetration on the bottom and the top. So I'm gonna go ahead and final weld the actual pieces now. Here's how I've been tweaking the exhaust. This piece right here coming off of the exhaust was down below. So this hanger was going down here. And that was interfering, of course, where the anti-roll bar spherical joint was coming over here. So I've managed to bend and twist this up here. So now this will go more like that. Getting these arms marked up. Putting some marks on the frame there where I'm going to have to grind it off the paint surface so I can weld it on there. And up here on the rear end, that one's kind of unfortunate because this is powder coated. When this rear end was all tore apart as a bare housing, I had it powder coated. It's nice glossy black and it's real tough and wipes down, stays clean real good, but oh well. I just got these tack welded in here and I'm gonna use that as a locating point so that I can get things the same on both sides. I went ahead and adjusted both of these arms the same length, locked the nuts in, and I'm going to bolt that in here, and that's going to give me a reference point on both sides of the chassis at the exact same spot. I measured from this bracket down to here to make sure they were the same on both sides. And then once I have these arms pinned in here, that will give me something so that when I put these up on here with the arms and the bar joined in, it'll locate both sides that are the same distance and the same angle, and then I can tack these guys in. So here's how I've mocked it up. The anti-roll bar itself is sitting on jack stands, and it's sort of an angular pressure. So as I slid it back towards the back of the car, it created a lower and lower profile till they pinched in there so that they're tight on both sides. And in addition to, you know, using the links themselves to locate on both sides, you can see here it goes up to the link right there. I'm also using an angle finder, digital angle finder on here, and checking side to side, and I'm finding that I'm within a half a degree from side to side, which I think is probably about as accurate as I'm going to be able to mock it up and get it. So I think that's going to be a good spot. I'm going to go ahead and tack these main brackets up to the axle now. And then before I final weld it, I'm going to go ahead and run it through its range of motion, meaning jack the body up and let the rear axle come down and up, and watch all these joints flex before I final weld it. Alright, in hindsight, I should not have welded both sides in. I just went ahead and grinded this one off because no matter how hard I tried, I could not get this last piece of shaft joint angle to match the other side. It was within 4 or 5 degrees, but I can't get them exact. And so, even though I measured the distance off of here and welded them at what I thought was identical, you know, a millimeter or two makes the difference of a few degrees. So I'm going to put the angle finder on here, line it up exact, and then tack it in. Everything's tack welded in now. Before I final weld it, I'm doing some testing. You can see I got the ends disconnected. I'm just checking various things, like for example right here, this swivels down and up real smooth and nice, which tells me these ends are square on both sides and it's not pinched or slightly twisted. I'm going to go ahead and lower this axle down and check that the ends stay at a good angle all the way through the range of motion, that I don't have to modify these exhaust hangers any different, or maybe even modify the mounting perches or on the axle or anything before I final weld it. That way, once it's welded and solid, this is going to be a nightmare to pull out. This is the time to check all these things. All right, there she is, all installed. It's all welded up. Links are in. I'm kind of excited. It's the first time I've ever done an under axle anti-roll bar. I've always done the over axle, which is a little bit different setup. Quite like how this came out. I'm going to go ahead and lower the suspension now so you can see how it articulates and moves down. Okay, here it goes. Back up. Alright guys, I'm going to end it off there. The anti-roll bar is installed, it's all welded, everything looks like it's functional. I'm excited about that. I really want to test it, but we're not going to take it out just yet. Next time we're going to install these subframe connectors I picked up. It needs some subframes. I figured we'll put it all in at the same time, then take it out for a test drive. I still got to clean up the welds on there, use my patented paint process so I don't get any paint on the car or overspray. We'll get these in, I'll paint them both at the same time, and then we'll throw some slicks on and take this thing out and test it. So I am really excited about that. So I also got to give a shout out to my buddy Joe. He helped me out with some of these mount points and where I wanted to put them. He even sent me this cool video showing his suspension articulating up and down to help me kind of gauge what I wanted to do around my exhaust issue. Thanks buddy, that helped out a lot. So yeah, till next time, let's get this done. What do you mean? What do you mean I can't say patented? They don't know. It's my idea. I like it. God darn it.